All right, buckle up, everybody, because we're going deep on Elon Musk today.
Deep dive. Yeah,
Using, of course, Walter Isaacson's biography as our guide.
it's a good one.
And honestly, it's already giving us a picture of Musk that's so much more than just the Tesla and SpaceX stuff we see in the news.
Oh, yeah, way more.
It's like going behind the scenes with one of the, well, most influential people in the world, I guess you could say.
For sure, absolutely.
So I'm really excited to dig in.
I'm too.
I mean, we all know the basics, the electric cars, the rockets, all of that.
Right.
But this deep dive is, well, it's uncovering some surprising stuff about his past.
Yeah.
Starting with his childhood in, get this, South Africa.
Oh, wow. During apartheid, no less.
Yeah, the apartheid era, the 1980s, Pretoria to be exact.
Like a totally different world.
Right. I mean, can you imagine how that must have shaped him?
Oh, absolutely. You can't understand Elon without understanding that period.
Exactly.
Those early experiences really lay the groundwork for, well, for everything that comes later.
Okay, so paint us a picture. What was it like growing up there?
Well, Isaacson paints a pretty intense picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a violent atmosphere, lots of unrest.
I mean, apartheid South Africa, so that makes sense.
Exactly. And Musk himself, he actually witnessed a murder.
What? Seriously?
Yeah, on his way to a concert, just a random act of violence.
That's heavy.
And that's not all. Isaacson talks about how the family, they had all these security measures in place, like German shepherds trained to attack.
Whoa, so like always on edge?
Exactly. Constant sense of danger.
Yeah.
And that, I think, feeds into what Isaacson calls Musk's siege mentality.
Siege mentality.
Yeah, this feeling of being constantly under attack.
Huh. So maybe that explains his risk tolerance, his drive to prove himself, all that.
Could be, for sure.
But it wasn't just the external violence, right? There were issues at home, too, with his dad.
Oh, yeah, the relationship with his father, Errol, that's a whole other layer of complexity.
So what was that like?
Well, Isaacson goes into detail about some pretty intense instances of emotional abuse.
Wow. So not just a strained relationship, but actual abuse.
Yeah, and there's this one story that really stuck with me.
Oh.
It's about Elon getting hospitalized after this brutal
Huh?
beating.
Oh, man.
And his father, instead of comforting him, he actually sided with the bully.
Are you serious?
Yeah, even berating him for provoking the attack.
That's messed up.
Seriously messed up. And this is after he's been hospitalized.
Wow. You have to wonder how someone comes back from something like that.
Right. But I think it speaks volumes about how adversity can shape someone.
Definitely.
And there's this other incident with his dog that's really telling.
Oh, right. The one that bit him as a kid.
Yeah, exactly. But what's interesting isn't just the bite itself.
It's his reaction.
Exactly. So he's bitten and he needs treatment, right?
Yeah.
But he refuses
Why?
because they were going to punish the dog.
Oh, wow.
And Elon, he wouldn't let them treat him unless they promised not to hurt the dog. Well, they promised. But then, in Musk's own words, they damn well shot the dog dead.
Oh, God.
You can imagine how that felt, the betrayal.
Especially on top of everything else with his dad. It's like a double whammy.
Exactly. And I think it created this deep distrust of close relationships, maybe.
Yeah, makes sense.
I mean, it's a theme we see throughout his life, this difficulty connecting with people.
His attraction to drama, even his drive to achieve these crazy things.
It's all connected.
Like he's always trying to prove something, not just to the world, but to himself.
Trying to overcome that feeling of vulnerability.
It's a powerful theory, and it definitely helps us understand where his ambition comes from.
Absolutely. And that ambition, it really takes off with his early successes.
With Zip2 and PayPal.
Right. Those were huge wins for him.
But even then, he was clashing with people, getting ousted from companies.
Yeah, and that raises a big question about his leadership style.
Like, brilliant innovator, but not necessarily a team player.
That's one way to put it.
And this pattern, it continues as he gets more and more ambitious.
With SpaceX and Tesla.
Right. These aren't just companies. They're like visions of the future.
Visions fueled by, Isaacson argues they're fueled by Musk's childhood love of science fiction.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, colonizing Mars, sustainable energy, it's all very sci-fi.
And that brings us to the risks he takes. I mean, they're insane.
Oh yeah, totally insane. But that's Musk.
Like with SpaceX, early days, everyone thought it would fail.
He poured all his money into it, ignored everyone's warnings.
And then there's a time he sued NASA.
Right. Who sues NASA?
That could have ruined him.
It's classic Musk, though. He's all in, even when the odds are stacked against him.
And then Tesla almost went bankrupt.
That was close, but that's when his surge strategy really kicks in.
Surge strategy, what's that?
It's like intense bursts of work, insane hours, impossible deadlines.
So basically sprinting a marathon?
Pretty much. And it's worked for him sometimes.
Like with SpaceX's fourth launch, that saved the company.
Right. But it also creates this crazy stressful environment.
Burnout, high turnover, all that.
Exactly. It's a double-edged sword.
And it's a pattern we see throughout his career, this intensity.
It's in everything he does, even his personal life.
And that's a whole other story, right?
Oh, yeah, buckle up, because his personal life is a roller coaster ride.
Well, let's save that for part 2, shall we?
Definitely. Got to leave him wanting more.
All right, everybody, stay tuned for part 2, where we delve into the wild world of Elon Musk's relationships.
It's going to be juicy.
You bet it is. Okay, so we've established that Elon Musk, pretty driven guy.
Understatement of the century.
Right. And shaped by, like, some pretty intense stuff.
Yeah, his past is, well, it's not your average childhood.
Not at all. But now, let's talk about his personal life.
Ah, yes, the stuff of tabloid dreams.
Because, let's be honest, it's made for a lot of headlines.
It's definitely kept the gossip mill churning.
So where do we even begin? I mean, his political leanings, for one, seem to be all over the place.
Oh, yeah, that's been a wild ride.
Like, first he's cautiously optimistic about Trump.
Right, that was a weird time.
And then, boom, disillusioned with Biden.
And now?
Yeah.
Well, let's just say his Twitter feed speaks for itself.
Yeah, not exactly shy about his opinions.
But, Isaacson points out that this whole political evolution,
Yeah.
it kind of reflects a bigger trend in Silicon Valley.
Like what?
Well, there was this initial, fascination with Trump.
Like the disruptor, the outsider, all that.
Exactly. But then, as his policies and rhetoric clashed with the whole tech world vibe.
Yeah, things soured pretty quickly.
Big time. And Musk's views definitely shifted along with that.
I mean, remember that meeting with tech CEOs back in 2016?
Oh, yeah, with Trump.
Isaacson talks about how Musk, even though he had reservations...
He was still, cautiously optimistic.
Right. But then, over time, he became a lot more critical.
Especially the Biden administration.
Like with the electric vehicle subsidies, the regulations, all that.
It became very public, very vocal.
And then there's the whole Twitter saga. I mean, talk about a roller coaster.
Oh, my God, that was something else.
He went from wanting to be on the board to launching a hostile takeover.
In what, a couple of months?
It was crazy, like watching a drama unfold in real time.
And remember when he tweeted about taking Tesla private?
Oh, yeah, that was wild.
Total chaos.
And Isaacson, he gives us all the behind-the-scenes details of the Twitter acquisition.
It's mind-boggling, honestly.
I mean, this is all happening while he's running multiple companies, dealing with personal stuff.
That's how does he even function?
Right. But his management style at Twitter, well, let's just say it was interesting.
Interesting is one word for it.
I mean, the late-night coding sessions, the firings, the insane work ethic he demanded.
It was like a pressure cooker turned up to 11.
Yeah, not exactly a sustainable way to run a company.
But that's the surge strategy for you.
Right, but at Twitter, it felt different, more chaotic.
Less planned, more like constant panic mode.
Remember that story about the engineer who got fired?
Oh, yeah, for not knowing an answer during a meeting.
At 3 a.m.
It's brutal.
And the whole server moved from Sacramento.
Oh, God, that was a mess.
So rushed, caused all kinds of disruptions.
Not his finest moment.
And then the blue checkmark thing, what a disaster.
Oh, yeah, that was a PR nightmare.
The whole Twitter blue idea, I mean, I get the intent.
Generate revenue, fight bots, all that.
But it backfired spectacularly.
Giving blue checks to anyone who paid without verification.
Impersonations, chaos, advertisers fleeing. It was like Twitter 101, how not to launch a product.
Exactly, a total mess.
And it felt like every other day there was a new controversy.
His content moderation, or lack thereof, was a huge issue.
He was all about free speech, brought back banned accounts, even Trump.
But that led to a surge in, well, everything. Hate speech, misinformation.
He had to backtrack, at least a little.
It was like his idealism met reality, and reality punched back.
I think he underestimated the challenge of managing, a global platform.
Billions of users, different viewpoints, it's not easy.
No, it's not. But anyway, let's shift gears a bit.
Okay, where to?
Let's talk about his personal relationships, because that's another area where things get complicated.
Buckle up, because it's a bumpy ride.
Isaacson really digs into Musk's struggles with, forming meaningful connections.
It's a recurring theme for sure.
Starting with his first marriage to Justine Musk.
They had 5 sons together.
But also went through the loss of their first child, Nevada.
Yeah, that's a tragedy no matter who you are.
And it obviously had a huge impact on both of them.
But it seems like their relationship, it just couldn't handle the pressure.
Musk's work ethic, His personality, it took its toll.
Justine's been very open about, well, about his lack of empathy.
And the constant arguments, the emotional drain.
Isaacson even quotes her saying that Musk, he told her once, "If you were my employee, I would fire you."
Whoa, that's harsh.
Yeah, not exactly the words you want to hear from your spouse.
And his other relationships, they seem to follow a similar pattern.
The on-again, off-again marriage to Tallulah Riley.
The Grimes saga, the children with Siobhan Zillis.
It's like he's this brilliant, driven guy.
But struggles with basic human connection.
Like all his energy goes into work, into these grand visions.
Leaves no room for intimacy, for vulnerability.
It's telling that even Tallulah Riley, after 2 divorces,
She still describes him as someone who loves fire, even if it burns him.
it's a powerful image.
Speaking of fire, what about the whole Grimes and Azalea Banks situation?
Oh yeah, that was bizarre.
Remember that story about Musk not even recognizing Banks?
Yeah, she's at his house and he has no clue who she is.
It's like he's so, in his own head, he's tuned out of reality.
And then the whole thing with their son, XA12.
Okay, I'm gonna need some help with that.
It's peak Musk.
It's like a sci-fi name generator exploded,
He wanted a unique, futuristic name.
but it just caused confusion, internet memes, the whole deal.
A perfect encapsulation of his, well, his eccentricity.
And speaking of children, there's also the estrangement from his daughter, Jenna,
Yeah, who's transgender.
and that's especially sad, given Musk's stance on transgender issues.
Which has become increasingly, well, let's say, aligned with certain viewpoints.
Yeah, and the breakdown of their relationship, it highlights the human cost of all this.
His public persona, his polarizing statements, it affects real people.
It makes you wonder, can you separate the man from his work?
Like, can you appreciate his accomplishments without condoning his behavior?
Yeah, it's a tough question.
And it's one we'll keep grappling with as we move into the final part of our deep dive.
Right, because we still need to talk about his impact on the world, his legacy, all of that.
And that's where things get really interesting.
Okay, so we've talked about his childhood, his personal life, all that.
It's been a journey.
It really has. And now I'm curious, what do you think about his impact on the world? Like, big picture stuff.
Ooh, that's the big question, isn't it?
Is he a force for good?
Uh,
Or does his ambition, come with a price?
I don't think there's an easy answer.
Yeah, it's complicated.
He's done amazing things, pushed boundaries, but he's also, well, he's broken things along the way.
Let's start with the positives, because there are a lot of them.
Oh yeah, tons.
I mean, Tesla, for example, it's revolutionized the car industry.
He made electric vehicles cool.
Right. Like, who would have thought?
But it's more than that. It's accelerated the whole shift to sustainable transportation.
Other companies had to catch up, invest in electric and batteries.
The ripple effect is huge.
And then there's SpaceX. He's, brought back the dream of space exploration.
And made it seem possible for private companies, not just governments.
SpaceX has completely disrupted the space industry. I mean, reusable rockets.
The Falcon 9, that changed everything.
Made space travel cheaper, more accessible.
And then there's Starship, the whole Mars thing.
That's next level, right? Like, straight out of science fiction.
It is, but that's Musk, setting crazy goals and then going for it.
And even if Starship doesn't work out, it's already pushing the limits of what we thought was possible.
Exactly, inspiring a whole generation of engineers, scientists, dreamers.
But then there's the downside, right? The surge strategy, the intensity.
You have the human cost of all this innovation.
Isaacson talks about the pressure, the grueling hours at his companies.
It's not all sunshine and roses, that's for sure.
And his behavior on Twitter, well, that's been a whole other issue.
Unpredictable, to say the least.
Attacking critics, spreading misinformation, even messing with stock prices.
It's a lot of power for one person.
And those tweets, they have real-world consequences.
Sometimes it feels like he's acting more on emotion than reason.
It's like he's this force of nature,
Capable of amazing things, but also destructive things.
A walking contradiction, right?
A visionary who can be reckless. A
Mhm.
genius who sometimes lacks common sense.
So what's the takeaway? What do you think his legacy will be?
It's hard to say. We're still living in the Elon Musk era,
True.
but I think it'll be a mix of achievement and cautionary tales.
Like a reminder of what's possible, but also the importance of ethics, empathy.
Of thinking about the consequences of your actions.
This deep dive has been incredible. I feel like I understand him so much better now.
That's the goal, right? To go beyond the surface, to see the complexity.
If anyone wants to learn more, definitely check out Isaacson's book.
It's a fascinating read, full of details we couldn't cover here.
You'll be thinking about it for a while, that's for sure.
Just like you'll be thinking about Elon Musk himself.
Well said. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. It's been a wild one.
My pleasure. Always a good time to dissect the mind of Elon.
That's for sure. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Until then, keep exploring.